Hey, what's up, everybody? The V Club here. You know what I got? I got fake lasers. Fake lasers, that's right. This channel is about anything and everything. Nothing's off the table. We talk about anything and everything. Alright, it's unscripted, everything is what I always say. So that's where it's at here. So, you know what? Let's get to it. Alright, let's get over here. I wanted to talk about the Democrats in general. They are just a hot mess right now. All right, and they're good for nothing. All right, except causing chaos and destruction. And it's great to see that Americans have come to their senses. At least ones that voted undemocratic, because when you look at what the Democratic Party has come about to be, right? They've come out to be a woke, um, whining, conniving, corrupt, um, you know, sort of party, because let's look at everything about it, right? They're woke, right? Because they care about all these things that and make things bigger than what it really is when it shouldn't really matter, right? Like they push the idea of, for example, uh, the gender identities, right? And they're trying to shove it down our throats. I mean, if people want to live the lifestyle, that's cool, but you don't need to like force it in our faces and shove it down our throats and do all these things to make it so it's like you gotta recognize it and all this other stuff, and it's like we can already recognize it, but you don't have to like force us and shove it down our throats in order to do so. But when it comes to that sort of thing, I don't like the fact that you're forcing it among kids in schools. You're allowing kids to kind of choose if they feel like they're a certain way, then they're a certain way. If they don't, then they don't. And it should be kind of reinforced, right? Because of biology, right? It's what you're born with. Because you can't change what you're born with, right? Now, that kind of thing. And then when it comes to being far along in their mind that maybe they're convinced that they're the opposite sex, well, that's where the parents should be allowed to come in to do something and say, hey, let's talk about this, right? And instead of reinforcing that, they should be reinforcing the fact that maybe you are what you're born with, right? Because you're born with it for a reason. And so that's something that we really got to rethink about, right? This whole idea about being, like I said, other avenues of being woke, right? When it comes to diversity, inclusion, equity, and inclusion, right? Which is kind of a forced approach upon us as well, right? Supposedly it's an untapped market, but is it? Is it untapped, or is it kind of just forced to make people recognize yet again an area of something that shouldn't even matter? Like, why do you have to force companies to hire based on gender or race when it should be about qualifications, right? And if it's a fit for the company, or fit for the job, or fit for whatever it is that is trying to be established. I mean, that's what it simply is, right? It should be based on, if you built up enough of a background experience that, okay, you know what, you could fulfill the role. That's what it should be, right? Because when you make DEI hires, a lot of them are not really qualified to do the job. and then they do a terrible job. All right. So let's look at that as an example because Kamala was a DEI vice president. Joe Biden said so. And what had she really done? Really done nothing, right? She was a border czar, but never went to the border. And even if she was supposedly supposed to investigate root causes, right? Um, to study or look at root causes of why this is happening at the border, she never did that. That was the one question that no one's ever asked her is, did you ever find the root causes? Because she probably don't even have an answer, right? And when you look at all these places, DEI hires, right? You look at Oakland, yeah, the mayor, right? Because a lot of these DEI hires were done during the time of like defunding the police and trying to find a new way, a new approach to crime and how to handle felons and things like that, right? The laws that are written, and that's why you had an open border and how all these jobs were filled with unqualified people, right? Because when you look at it, let's look at Oakland for example, right? Asian mayor, hot. Well, I don't know. I mean, some people might think she's hot. I bang her. But she got what you call it, recalled, right? And was she qualified to do the job? No, she was threw her hat in the fire and got picked up based on I don't know, being woke and Asian, Oakland, right? And so proven to be a terrible, you know, hire to do the job, right? You look at Pamela Price, terrible DEI hire to do the attorney job, came in there during the time of defunding the police. Gascon, terrible in San Francisco, went to LA, terrible in LA. That's why he didn't get reelected. Someone else picked over him because he was so soft on crime, right? Thing about all these Democrats is that another thing too is that they're all about defunding police because there's a different way to approach how to handle crime and all that stuff, right? A softer approach, catch and release approach, right? That's what the government is about, and Democrat politicians and cities are run about, right? Defunding police because we can reimagine how it is, how to run these things, right? And of course, what happens? Crime goes up. Let's see here. London Breed, that's another DEI mayor. Did a bad job. That's why she didn't get reelected. And you look at current mayors, Eric Adams, right? Doing a terrible job as a mayor, but starting to wake up a little bit, right? Because all of a sudden, he's on the same script with Trump without really outright saying it, but really his actions are speaking louder than his words, right? You look at Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, right? African American. Terrible, terrible job in Chicago. And that's another thing. They're all about illegal immigration, right? And it makes you wonder why. Denver, Colorado, yeah, it's a white mayor, but still, they're Democrat. They're all about these soft policies, illegal immigration and all that. So yeah, going back to the list of a hot mess Democrat Party is. So they're forcing this sort of race, gender ideology down our throats of being woke, soft on crime, defunding the police, excessive spending. They spend like no other people can spend, and overspend That's what they do. They love to overspend. And you notice all these blue cities, they're all running deficits, right? Because of overspending, because of moronic decision making, right? You look at Brandon Johnson, whacked out budget. What does he want to do? $300 million raising of accumulate of collecting property tax, which got shot down. New York budget is shot. They got to cut they got to cut their budget in order to meet their deficit, right? And but well, I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, so New York's having a problem. Denver's having a problem that they're shuttling their migrants out to other cities, dumping them off, right? And then if it was in my city and I was mayor, I'd boot them people back. Be like, hey Denver, this is your problem. You clean up your fucking mess, right? And so you have that, right? Let's see here. San Francisco, budget shot. LA, budget shot. California, budget shot. Every one of these states where they have a Democratic run, either governor or mayor, the budgets are shot. Oh, even Oakland. Oakland's bad. Budget shot. And they all have the same thing in common. They overspend. They're not really good at bookkeeping because either they don't know where they spent the money or they overspend, and then they can't figure out what to do to fix it. And it's so easy. All these problems that Democrats are putting on everybody. Oh, by the way, the U.S. government with Biden in office blew up the budget further along in the trillions, right? By overspending, funding Ukraine, funding, what's the other country? Ukraine and Israel, right? For their problems. Loan forgiveness, student loan forgiveness. All these handouts to the illegals, right? And the list keeps going on and on of all this overspending on bullshit. The Green New Deal policy, all these different rebates for electric bullshit. And then you wonder, why are we in this position in the first place? Because it's the Democrats. And you can't argue with me about why everything they've done is much better. Like, show me. They created inflation. They created, high cost of living in everything. They created problems, in the world at the border. Created problems in the other countries. Right? Like this wishy-washy stuff with Israel and Palestine, Hamas. Right? When we were always been allies with Israel for the longest time. But yet they play this wishy-washy game with Palestine and Israel. Right? And it's like, what the fuck's going on here? And then it just continues on. So you could tell that they're the party for the elites because all the elites were backing the Democratic Party. Look at all the Hollywood people backing them. And at the same time, when they could be really supporting Americans, they're really not. Because they keep supporting illegals that are coming in the border with the debit cards, the place to live, the food, all that stuff. Oh, we'll fly you wherever you want to go. And then they put it on us to pay for it. And not only that, they continue to either raise taxes or put fees or anything else for us to pay more for their overspending and for them to pay the illegals. And that doesn't make any sense to me. So, how are they supportive of the Americans when they're not supporting us, right? And so they used to be known as, people for the working class Americans, but they really have pushed Americans away. And that was the theme of the election, right? You could see the elites were self serving and supportive, or maybe they were just paid to support Kamala because when you look at everything in retrospect, right, all those Hollywood people, the certain ones that got paid, like the Oprahs and the Megan Thee Stallions and the Beyoncés and stuff, right? And then whoever jumped on board in terms of just, oh yeah, I support Kamala because, she just brings joy, and all that stuff, right? But then when you look at that, though, it's like, it just seems inauthentic and fake, right? And really, to me, it gives Hollywood a black eye. When you see these elites, they come out and don't know why they support Kamala, but they're just doing it because, well, the other elites are, right? They're so above us. Because that really shows the divide between those celebrities or Hollywood elites and all that stuff, right? Is that you could tell that there's a divide right there. That they don't really support us, but continue to push us away. Well, yeah, we'll take your money, but push us away, right? And that's why you started to see the fallout of support when it came to the unions, for example, right? More unions have become less supportive of the Democratic Party and not outright say that, oh, well, we support Trump, but at the same time, that really supports Trump because they really showed that, well, they see what's going on with the Democrat Party and that they're not really caring about the unions anymore either. And so when you look at all that, it really opens up your eyes even more about how much of, Democrats are really just too progressive, too liberal for their own good. And that's that's the whole thing about it to me, And I grew up looking at, the liberal sort of way, right? I grew up in that. And I felt like I got indoctrinated into that because college really pushes that narrative onto you, right? That, oh, being liberal is the best thing to be, especially in San Francisco when I went to San Francisco State back then. And when you look at that, it's like, wow. And they really reinforce that hard. It's really indoctrination, right? And I've always thought about it now, years later, that the only way you could really tell what makes the difference is when you really are working that job, right? You're working that job, and not some minimum wage job. I'm talking about that career job that you finally broke into, right? You're finally going to get that career job that you've been working hard to get to, and you got it, right? Whether it's in the corporate world, law enforcement, whatever, right? Nurses, medical profession, whatever it is that you have always tried to set yourself up to be, right? And you're in that field of work, right? You get taxed. You pay the bills. You buy a home, right? And then you start to see, you got to balance your budget and the books and pay the bills, right? Then you really start to see the difference that, wow, you know what? man, being liberal doesn't do anything for you, right? They hold your hand, they give you handouts, they hold your hand, but when it's time to pay the bills and you're working, you have a real responsibility, man, they don't hold your hand anymore. They're not there for you anymore. And then you start to see that it's the conservative sort of ways that really are there for the working class, right? So it makes more sense to go that way. And so they're a hot mess, you know? Because when you look at what's going on over here, right? Kamala's been super quiet. And you start to see things that are happening, unraveling, right? For example, top pollster who projected Harris to win in Iowa steps away. Why? Why are politicians now in the Democrat Party starting to kind of step out of what they represented, right? Being woke, being progressive. They were all on board until they got beaten down finally. And then next thing you know, it's like they started to stray away from that progressive far left ways, and some of them are starting to kind of act more centrist, right? Kind of in moderate or centrist. And so it makes you wonder, all of a sudden, right? All of a sudden, like for example, let's see if they show that. Let me see if they show that. I don't know if they show it here, but AOC. All right, I'll throw it out there. I don't see AOC. All right, so is that it? Here we go. So here's AOC, right? You know, that's another one I would bang. I'd bang her. But I think that's what Democrat females are about. I think they're just good for banging. Not great for brains, but great for banging. That's all I got to say about that. Woo! Let me see here if I can find it. Alright, I'm not finding it. Alright, I'm just going to punch up AOC because she's starting to change her ways, right? She's super woke. Alright, super woke. You know, everything's about, you know, race and gender ideology representing New York, right? All of a sudden started making changes. Look at that. Throwing out the pronouns, which she had on her X profile, you know, which is Twitter, X account. All of a sudden, throwing out the pronouns. That signals change, right? That signals change as to, you know, maybe she should change her ways as well, and that's what she's doing. She's trying to correct herself to make her look more for the people once again, because people like her and all these other yentas and all these other people in the Democrat Party have gone way too far left for their own good, that people were tired of that shit. And then when you listen to her speak about stuff, she looks foolish and stupid. Like, you should watch this clip about when, you know, they're clashing about the whole border situation, and Tom Holman was about, well, they're illegal. And she's talking about how they're migrants, and it's like, well, no, they committed a crime, they're illegal. And it just goes on, but she got put in her place. Alright, and so things like that. Ben Carson mocks AOC to her face for asking a stupid question. Right? Whole room erupts as Trump border czar tells her. I mean, it just goes on, but it's funny how all of a sudden she removes pronouns, right? Because that was a big thing too about this whole race gender ideology of being woke and progressive is, oh, you know, you got, you know, you go by the pronouns, you know, and You gotta respect this and that. It's like, get the fuck out of here, bitch. I mean, like I said, great for banging, but that's about it, you know? Um, but yeah, see, look at that. It's big news. There are X users noticed big change to her profile. All right, people are talking about it. So she's changing. She's signaling for change. I think because it's convenient to. Um, and I think because she don't want to be looking like she's still far left progressive, because she's really the epitome of a loser right now. And I think everybody's kind of starting to distance themselves from her now. All of a sudden, right? People are trying to distance themselves from the Biden and Harris administration. That's why Eric Adams is speaking out differently, right? All of a sudden, right? Um, a lot of people are coming on board, kind of distancing themselves from the old Democratic, far left progressive stance that they've been doing these last few years. All of a sudden, right? Because they've proven to be how much of a loser they are in America, that people have come to their senses and they were tired of that shit. So that's one of those things that, it's interesting to see. But then you still have people that will double down, on their stance on everything. And for example, Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, right? Oh, he's doubling down on his position, right? He doesn't care about Trump. He's actually trying to protect the illegals at the expense of Chicago citizens, right? Try to raise a $300 million property through property taxes increases. Try to put that to a vote and got shot down 50 to 1. That's crazy, huh? That's crazy how how even the council was against that. He ran on not raising property taxes, and 2 years later wants to raise property taxes. She's doubling down. Whoopi. Always race baiting, gender baiting, masturbating, right? Trying to accuse a bakery of, because of her political beliefs, that she got refused. So get the fuck out of here, bitch. Right? It's things like that. Look at that irresponsible spending. 1.5 billion and lost. Spent and still lost. All right? It's just funny how this is, right? She had opportunities to really show who can she really be through means of, like, for example, she was offered to go to Joe Rogan's. He didn't deny her. But then she tried to make it convenient for her. Oh, you got to come see me. Why? Because you're a vice president? Get out of here. Trump was a former president and still went out of his way to go see Joe Rogan. So, it's just funny how that is, huh? I mean, the list goes on and on. The rest of the View, looking, they're still doubling down. You look at Rachel Maddow, her, doubling down. But it's funny because all these networks that were so supportive of the liberal Democrats have either cut or up for sale, right? I mean, big time cuts. Viewership has dropped massively for those stations. Those former, some of them are even kind of changing their tune now, trying to make it more either centrist or bringing back some more right-leaning people to kind of balance things out, at least. But yeah, look at that. MSNBC for sale. CNN had massive cuts because of all the lost viewership. or lost viewers. Fascinating how that is, huh? Yeah, but you're gonna still see people doubling down on their position, and so that's just how it is. It's not gonna be completely abandoned, but at the same time, people are waking up and really seeing the Democrats for what they really are, which is good. It's good to see that. All right, because people are tired of this whole woke stuff and a lot of stuff that we shouldn't be in position of right now. For example, why are we doing these wars out there, right? Israel could have handled their own business had we not intervened to stop them, right? Now we got to fix the mess. Ukraine. Well, if there was more talks with Russia and Ukraine, with U.S. involvement as a mediator, possibly, had the U.S. not dropped the ball, which is the Biden-Harris administration, well, it's something that could have been handled and not escalated. Student loan forgiveness, for what? We they should be paying for their own college and not rely on the government to be forgiven. I mean, the list goes on and on, right? Why are they continuing to just pay illegals? They are illegal, so we should not be paying them, let alone have an open border. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff that is fixable if we are allowed to fix it. Here's another one. Terrible spender in California. Big spender, terrible at balanced books. That's another bad one right there for you. Newsom, terrible. That's why he's trying to, continue to get more fees through bonds, because taxes will be shot down instantly. Bonds, they might slip a couple bonds through, right? And that's what happened in this year's ballot. A couple bonds slipped through. But yeah, California is a terrible mess because it's irresponsibly run by Newsom. And that's another one for you right there. Terrible. Supposedly, when he's termed out, because he can't run anymore after 2026, supposedly Kamala might be the top candidate to be able to run for governor. People, you gotta wake up. If you're gonna vote for Kamala to be governor, man, we're gonna be continuing a terrible mess. Alright, you guys gotta wake up from that. So, that's the Democrats for you, right? All about the elites, having us pay for everything, and nothing to show for. And then, but yeah, they'll support illegals. They're going to use those illegals to replace us. That's why they didn't get the votes. That's why Republicans are put back in office, and not only that, they swept the House, representatives, the Senate, they swept Supreme Court. They dominated the Supreme Court. At least we're going somewhere again to where we could finally, just really get rid of this whole bullshit that the Democrats were trying to really force upon us all these last few years. Get back to just being who we are once again, which is being American. All right, so yeah, so I can't wait to see what's in store. Just being American once again, right? Like the sense of being American and feeling good about it is coming back, like the spirit of it. Because these last few years, man, you just don't feel it, you know. You lost that sense, that passion of being American, and I'm glad there's that sense of optimism and feeling of being back again. So, I just wanted to sum it up for you, give you guys, um, my thoughts on what Democrats really are. And they're just a hot mess. They really got to get it together here. And it looks like some of them are starting to kind of come around a little bit. But they still got a lot of work to really shake this progressive stance and this far left progressive ways that they really got to really just abandon if they want to try to win Americans again. And yes, we do need mass deportation because if a lot of them are doing crime, let's just say not all of them are committing crimes, even though they committed the major crime of crossing the border illegally. But I'm talking about crime within the borders here, right? So crime within the borders, and if you commit a crime and you're a guest, it should be automatic deportation, no questions asked. It's funny how in any other country you do something like that, you either get locked up or booted. But yet here it's so soft that it doesn't happen. And that's why we have a terrible problem with everything when it comes to crime, theft, illegal crossings, and it just goes on and on. And that's why. So, something to think about there, all right? But yeah, other than that, I just want to say thanks for tuning in. And I just really want to show you guys and talk about what Democrats are really about and their sad agenda. And we'll eventually have a woman president, but Kamala wasn't going to be that woman. That's all it is. Doesn't matter if it's black, white, whoever it is that people want it to be, it'll be. But at the same time, it's someone that will have to be intelligent. It doesn't need teleprompters. It doesn't need to study materials, but actually knows politics and knows how to speak to people and knows how to really take on real leadership. And so that's what I think will come, in time. But Kamala wasn't going to be that one. Sorry. But anyhow, I just wanted to share that with you guys. Thanks. Subscribe. And more to come. I always got more to come to talk about. I'll see you next one.